All right, welcome to another live stream, Legends. Well, Bitcoin is at a very interesting spot, you guys. Honestly, in this video I want to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. Quite honestly, I have some mixed feelings about where we're at in this market cycle. There is reason to believe that we could shoot higher, but there is also, I feel like it would be, I guess, just not very responsible to totally ignore some of the red flags that I want to talk about, I guess. So with that, just taking a look at the 4 hour here. I mean, I've been warning about this resistance level for quite a while, basically since we ended up breaking that 89K lower high resistance. I mean, at that point, it became very real that, we broke the micro trend. It makes a lot of sense to retest the entire trend, basically where we got our pivot and where we had our all-time highs. I'm just going to switch the color because it's bugging me. But yeah, basically, this is just a typical Stuber fib setup, right? The fact that we ended up losing this structure here, breaking to the downside, and getting a retracement. I know it feels right now that, all-time highs are guaranteed and that sort of thing. And you know what? To be fair, we could break out. We absolutely could just be staircasing higher. We do something like this where we just keep flipping resistance into support and carrying on higher like that. That would be absolutely fantastic, you guys. I would be just as happy as the next guy in that case. But the fact is, we are still trading at resistance. I don't want to totally ignore that, because if this was a 5-minute chart, you guys, if we just pretended these big numbers on the side here weren't here and we looked at the actual structure of the chart, not what the price levels are, because when you start looking at the price in the tens of thousands like this, if we even reach the 2 targets for that Stuber fib to play out, I mean, even a healthy correction in that case, the targets would be about 20,000 US dollars lower than we currently are. That's not to say it has to happen, but it's just a very realistic approach to have, to look at the fact that we could pull back to that level. We have not retested any support since we broke this micro downtrend here. Just like how when we ended up breaking this micro trend to the upside, broke it to the downside, we came back and we retested resistance. It would make a lot of sense that when we break the opposite trend, we come back and test that support. Doesn't have to happen, but it would be very reasonable if the price ends up doing that. And honestly, it would be more healthy in my opinion. If we could actually retest some support and get a proper bounce off that level, I would feel better about the price than I do right now, because as it stands right now, yeah, the price looks great. The bulls look very strong. The price of Bitcoin always looks strongest at resistance, just like it always looks weakest at support. So I know naturally it feels like I want to long this because, it looks like we're going to break out. But the fact is, we have not broken out yet. And even if we did, there's a good chance that you could get back in at the same levels and just long the retest. And at least in that case, you would have some sort of a bullish confirmation that you've taken out some resistance, taken out some key levels. But as it stands right now, we are at resistance. So no matter how you look at it, I mean, yes, the bulls look great. The bulls look strong. We have some indicators lining up. We still have this buy trend here. There's a lot of things going for the bulls, I can't lie. But again, the fact is, we are trading into resistance. We just can't ignore that fact. And when we start to zoom out, I mean, let's look at the weekly chart. Same thing, right? It's just that same Stuber fib. It doesn't matter if it's the weekly. If I was looking at this chart, and if this was a 5-minute structure chart here, I would be looking at basically shorting these levels and looking for a pullback back down to my targets. I mean, that would just be a typical play as far as the structure goes. So I don't care if it's the weekly chart or the daily chart or the 4-hour, the 1-hour, 15-minute, 5-minute, 1-minute, etc., etc. Structure is structure. I don't care about the numbers on the side, to be completely honest. I just care about the structure. And as it stands right now, for myself included, this is just a very dangerous zone in general. I think a lot of people are getting married to ideas either way. Myself included, it's no secret to you guys, I've had quite an openly bearish stance, for quite some time. I was totally open to the bounce after we ended up breaking. Like, I was wrong down here, right? As far as the micro trend, I will fully admit, you know what? Eventually that trend broke. That's totally fine. I like playing the trend until it breaks. After it broke, that's where I was kind of very, well, not kind of, I was very interested in how we react to these levels up here. So You know, at this level, currently, it's looking like the price is trying to reject. And even if I bring up some indicators here, I mean, look at the RSI, guys. Unfortunately, we don't quite have the RSI divergence that I want. I would really like to see it to get up a little higher to the 70 level. But either way, how I'm looking at it right now, I mean, what does the RSI stand for? Relative Strength Index. So we are coming up to the same resistance level that we could not break back here when we actually had, you know, overbought conditions. We had a lot of buying pressure at that point, and now we're approaching the same resistance with significantly less strength. A lot of people would consider this that, hey, the RSI has cooled off. Honestly, in a bull market, in a strong trend, I want to see the RSI in overbought conditions. That's just showing a shit ton of buying pressure, so much strength in the market in an uptrend. In a downtrend, yes, it would be overextended at that point. But, you know, I would feel much better about the price if the RSI gets back up into this territory here. But as it stands right now, like I said, we're at resistance and we have significantly less strength. So, you know, that's a pretty big red flag to me. The Wave Master looks not so bad. To be completely honest with this one, you know what? We have things crossing to the upside. We got that bullish pivot down here. Will that carry on? It absolutely could, right? That's a point for the bulls. I will give that to them. But I don't want to completely ignore this divergence with being at resistance. The monthly chart, guys, here is something that very much concerns me. Sorry, one sec. Smyrn, you don't have any sound? I think everyone else said that they had sound. Yeah, it's just you apparently. But yeah, guys, the monthly chart is the one that really concerns me. And again, looking at the Wave Master. So on the monthly, when I zoom out here, I have very large concerns about this indicator because this is a very strong momentum indicator. And in the past, I mean, these vertical lines here line up with where we've got bullish and bearish crosses with this indicator. And, you know, there's a lot of people who think that, hey, this bull market is just getting started. We're just about to go parabolic. Understand that from a momentum point of view, every time we've got a cross on this indicator so far, it has been a complete reversal. So it does not have to happen again. I want to be clear about that. Trends break, right? We have a trend currently that every time we get a cross, it is basically a perfect reversal. But you know what? That doesn't have to happen again. But does it make sense? I think it makes sense. You know, these crosses over here, I'm not as interested in because they weren't from overextended conditions, right? Like this bullish cross down here from oversold, this bearish cross from overbought, this bearish cross from overbought, bullish cross from oversold. And then we did end up hitting that overbought conditions and got that bearish cross once again. To get a retest like this, I mean, that's very normal. If this was any other time frame, when you break microstructure like that, it's very common to end up retesting, right? Just like I was looking at on the shorter time frames, the fact that we're pulling up to resistance again. Remember, resistance is resistance until it's broken, but we have this bearish cross on momentum. It looks like it's trying to cross back to the upside, but really it's just back testing the longer average here. So, you know, there's a lot of red flags. And then let's talk about the timing on this, right? I'm just going to get rid of that just to open things up a little bit. But just look at the timing of what has happened here, you guys. And a lot of people who think that this market cycle is just getting started. Let's just talk about that with this momentum indicator and where these crosses happened. I mean, we're currently at 28 months since we got the bullish cross on this indicator to the bearish cross. Last market cycle was 2 months shorter than that. So the timeline, it has me a little worried right now because does it make sense that, you know, this market cycle could be over? Does it seem a little too early? Well, with the momentum indicator, I mean, it lines up pretty damn well, especially when you consider that, I mean, a lot of people, most of you guys are probably very aware that generally speaking, market cycles get a little bit longer and less volatile, right? So does it make sense that, yeah, this market cycle was not quite as parabolic? The gains were not quite as large on a percentage basis. yeah, it makes sense. Diminishing returns every cycle. It takes more and more money to move the price the same amount every market cycle. So yeah, I understand this market cycle feels different because there's bigger players. There's I would argue the biggest players are now in the space, which has me concerned about next cycle. But that being said, just the fact that, yeah, we got bigger players in the space this cycle. Well, last market cycle also had bigger players, and the cycle before that also had bigger players. Every single market cycle has way bigger players getting into the space, and you basically need that to even have similar market cycles. So although this market cycle might feel different, I think it might be different in a way that a lot of people are not ready for. So yeah, like I said, from a timing perspective, it makes sense. From a gains perspective, I think it makes sense. But yeah, that's just a big red flag for me right now. So keep that on the radar. I mean, if we just keep staircasing higher, really, if we get a weekly or even a 4-hour candle or anything above the all-time highs, at least at that point, we have some new structure, right? So if we end up, this is very theoretical, by the way, this does not have to happen, but let's say we end up breaking all-time highs, right? Let's just say, oh, all of a sudden we're up to this level. First of all, that Stuber fib, the macro one, invalidation isn't until above 115K. So there is still a lot of wiggle room to the upside where this market cycle could still be in the process of topping out. But let's say we do just start staircasing higher, something like that. I mean, at that point, I'll be looking at playing pullbacks once again, because at that point we have new structure, we have new swings, we have new ranges to pull fibs from. Right now, as far as looking for longs, I mean, yeah, I'm taking the odd scalp on a shorter time frame to the upside still, trying to catch something just in case. But as far as looking for an actual swing position to the upside, the only reasonable plays I see are if we get something like this, where we break the highs and start staircasing higher like so, and then looking for pullbacks, or getting a very large pullback right now. I have zero interest in longing these areas on the way down, this structure down here, because at that point we've already lost this microstructure, right? This trend that we currently had, after breaking, I was talking about this level back here. That was the micro trend, the micro lower high. Since then, we were just setting higher highs, higher lows. This one technically did get broken on a very micro level, that did, but then the downtrend ended up breaking as well. And then again, just higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high. That trend eventually broke. We got a Stuber retest on a smaller scale inside the bigger one. So that micro trend has technically already broken here. So it wouldn't be all too crazy to think that we would retest the swing. And again, this does not have to be seen as a bearish perspective. Quite honestly, like I said, it would make me more bullish to see that backtest of support after starting this uptrend. I would love nothing more. And I will be a buyer if we get down to these levels, even if I think it'll be short-lived. That's the thing, guys, is that that's just, to me, that's a buy level. I'll be taking profits off some shorts if I'm in one. Realistically, I am hoping to be in some shorts if we end up down at those levels, but I will be profit taking at those levels, and I will be looking to hedge some longs, just because even if it's short-lived, we're just looking at something like this, right? It would just be the opposite Stuber fib down here. Now, here's the thing, you guys, is a lot of people are going to get very bearish into support, just like they're getting very bullish into resistance. And although, even if that theory is right, as soon as we get one of these, we test into that box and we just get a very obvious bounce, something like that, crypto Twitter and social media in general is going to go fucking nuts and go full retard again. Excuse my language, but it just, you see it every time that you get any sort of a reaction off a level that's just a very obvious level. Just because we get a bounce from here, honestly, we could get one of these where we just trend to the downside, we get a bounce from there, and we shoot all the way back up here. And that is where you would start seeing FOMO get ridiculous on social media, just like every time we test a 786 retest. But you would see that FOMO coming into the market just because we get a reaction, and that's not even a ridiculous reaction to get. That has no there's no confirmation that that is a bottom until we end up breaking structure to the upside, and unfortunately right now that means breaking all-time highs. But again, just because I'm still bearish, and I would still be a little bit bearish on the trend as a whole, like I said, I would still be looking for those long opportunities just because it's such a fucking obvious buy level. And again, just watch how insane the emotions get after we get the bounce, right? Those people will be very bearish going into support, and then we'll start to bounce, and then they will start getting FOMO at resistance. It's like clockwork, you guys. Let's take a look at some shorter time frames here. Guys, lately, I mean, we're just seeing so many different Stuber fib setups, right? That's the thing. This 4-hour setup here, notice it looks just like my 5-minute setup here. Let me just get rid of some of these other ones. But this one back here, we basically have the same thing, right? On the 4-hour, we had this bigger range, and then we end up losing that support, and we come back up and retest the 786, 886 fib pocket. On the 5-minute, what do we have? We have this sideways range here. We lose this structure. We come back up. We test the 786, 886 fib pocket. The 5-minute and the 4-hour, the daily, the weekly, they all kind of have the same structure right now. And that's, like I say, I don't really care what the time frame is. I just care about the structure. And looking at that 4-hour chart where we're trading right now would be somewhere in here. You know, we obviously ended up hitting both these fib targets, right? As far as looking for this fib in this purple box here, we ended up hitting target 1, target 2. So does it make sense the 4-hour can do the same? Absolutely. So anyways, I am still in a bit of a short from that. That's been open for 2 or 3 days now. Where were we here? Tuesday. Yeah. So since Tuesday morning, I believe it was for me. I entered a short there, and I still have half of that running for now. But then even from there, you guys, where we got this purple box here and we got another rejection, right? So where we got this Stuber fib rejection here, notice if we just pull a fib from there, that one never quite hit. But if we just kept chasing the price, notice where this other purple box is. And again, eventually we get that retest of the 786, getting a little bit of a rejection there. And then if you really want to zoom in and get real into the real nitty gritty, the micro analyzing here, same thing here, right? Just as we're setting higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, actually technically 2 there, but whatever. We lose that structure. We come back, we test this fib here. That being said, this is obviously a much smaller range here. So I'm looking at this as more of a scalp. I've already closed a quarter of it because it hit my first TP. But the fibs would look something like that, right? Just pulling from the top of where we topped out here from the previous Stuber fib setup. We end up getting down or getting right back up to this fib pocket. And again, entered a bit of a scalp there. I've taken a quarter profits, hoping to hit this target down here. If I hit that, I'm updating my stop loss to break even. For now, I still have it. I have it just above the 886 right now. Since we got a nice rejection out of that fib pocket on a scalp sized time frame there, I don't want to have my stop loss above the 115 anymore on that one, because I still also have that other half position running. So this is just more so looking at a scalp here. But so we're seeing Stubers on all sorts of time frames, all sorts of different assets. And you guys know that's the one strategy that I obviously love playing. But yeah, starting to see it across many different time frames. So that's why I say, guys, even though I see reasons why, you know, the market looks strong, like I said, the 4-hour, we have the trend master indicator holding this buy trend here. We obviously invalidated the series of lower sell signals and lower buy signals on the trend with the MDX trend master indicator. So we're obviously, our next sell signal will be a higher one. So at that point, if we get a higher buy signal, I think it will be a very strong indication that we are going to continue higher. I think at that point, it would be a nice buy signal. But that being said, that's going to be a ways away if we do get that, because I want to see a new sell signal followed by a new higher buy signal. As it stands right now, I think it would make a lot of sense that if we end up printing a sell signal here after testing resistance like that, even if we're going to trend to the upside, again, we could just end up testing this support down here, retesting the support of this massive range, and then printing a slightly higher buy signal. That would literally be the best thing that I could think of seeing in Bitcoin right now, to be completely honest. Would be basically retesting anywhere from, call it, anywhere from 82 down to, honestly, we could even do a liquidity grab, call it 72, really down towards 70. Anyway, I know that's a big range, but it is a big range. So support is obviously huge. I would rather see us stay above the 886 because I would love to see the bulls step in early rather than late, to just show, a little bit of excitement, seeing a higher low printed basically. So I would love to see the bulls step in from anywhere from about 82 to, call it, 78K. And with that higher buy signal, if we ended up getting one, that would just be the chef's kiss. I think that would be an absolutely beautiful setup in that case. But we're going to have to see if we get it, right? Being this is a 4-hour chart, that would take realistically probably more than a week to even appear. We're just going to have to see what structure does, but it's just kind of something to be aware of, looking forward, just planning ahead a little bit. How are you all feeling on the market? I know I asked this earlier before I got started, but let me know in the chat, those of you who are live here with me, how do you all feel? And also let me know if there is any altcoins you want me to check. I am going to check a few things, like I wanted to check the DXY. Not that, I know a lot of people think the DXY has to be totally inverse correlated. That's not necessarily the case. And although it looks like, yeah, we might be getting a little bit of a swing fail, so we might recover a little. Understand that structure on a very large time frame. When did we set this low? July of 2023, so almost 2 years ago we set this low. We have set a lower low since that. So the highest point between the two would be up here. So even if the DXY does end up getting some sort of a bounce, I would expect resistance to kick in slightly lower. Obviously, we'll have to see how that plays out. But yeah, again, Bitcoin and the DXY can climb together. They can also sell off together. I know quite often they move opposite, but not always. What else? I also wanted to check out ETH BTC. I wanted to check out very large time frames. So here's one, guys. In my last few streams, both my public ones and the ones here, I've been mentioning the fact that even though I think that Bitcoin is at resistance, and honestly, I think there's a good chance it's topped. There's also a good chance that it hasn't, right? I mean, the market doesn't give a fuck what I think. But even if Bitcoin has topped, I don't think that's necessarily the end of the entire market cycle, because I think that even if it has topped and it starts selling off, I really think altcoins will have their moment in the sun. I know the last few weeks they've been actually doing quite well, at least the meme coins, I guess. I've been mostly, as far as spot trading, I've been spot trading some low cap volatile meme coins a little bit, and a lot of them have been performing quite well the last few weeks. Haven't really been looking at the higher caps all that much. But just in general, I mean, that's very typical in market cycles. When Bitcoin ends up topping, that altcoins take one last little hurrah and they make a very large pump at the end of the cycle. And that's when everyone thinks, that's where everyone gets crazy FOMO, because even altcoins are pumping, but they don't realize that that's kind of the last little bit of money shuffling around and people trying to exit their positions and that sort of stuff. And just drawing that FOMO in. So something to watch for. Because right now, look at this. I mean, ETH compared to BTC, we are seeing that obviously Ethereum is recovering better than Bitcoin is right now. But we're just going to have to see. Ethereum, I do want to look at the price of Ethereum as well, rather than just against Bitcoin. I also want to go to a longer time frame, or a longer chart. I mean, I can see exactly what ended up giving us a nice little boost there. A lot of you guys know where I'm going with this. Classic. So again, I mean, yes, I've been bearish on Bitcoin for quite some time, and I assume altcoins will follow closely behind. But as it stands, I mean, I bet there was a lot of people getting very bearish on Ethereum at these levels. Honestly, I don't really look at Ethereum all that much. I haven't shorted. It's not like I'm shorting Ethereum, but I'm also not longing Ethereum. I'm just not trading it, period, pretty much, other than the odd time. But yeah, that's just a very obvious. Again, this doesn't mean that it's going to go absolutely parabolic, but it's just one of those very obvious buy levels, right? Because it's just that retesting, you know, we got that nice pump to the upside. And on a longer time frame, yeah, it feels painful, but that's a very healthy correction that we just came down back to support and retested it. I would feel much better about this going and creating new all-time highs if these highs right here, or here I should say, any of these highs, if these highs would have made it above this, because then we would at least have broken structure to the upside as well to help me favor the bullish side in that case. But to see an obvious bounce off this level, I mean, yeah, not too surprised to see that. But also wanted to take a look at Solana. So here's one of those cases. Now, guys, these are weekly charts that I've been looking at on the altcoins here. So by all means, if you want me to check out some shorter time frames and stuff, let me know. Some of them I will in a little bit, but I just kind of want to get an overall feel for the altcoins as well right now. But guys, a couple of things. One, I mean, this is just a big, basically a big swing fail, just getting rejected at all-time highs, just a wick above a couple of times on the weekly, but never closed anything above. And I have my concerns right now, just that even this microtrend, let's just say we did want to count that as a higher high and a higher high, we've lost that trend as well, right? So even if we get a bounce from here, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go parabolic. I would say that there is something like this looking for resistance around 250. Don't get me wrong, that's a huge move. That's absolutely beautiful. And again, I would love to see altcoins go for a big run. I would absolutely love to see that. But we'll have to see what the market gives us. As it stands right now, you know, the thing is, Bitcoin is at its macro resistance, right? It's at the 786, 886 fib pocket. But a lot of these altcoins like Solana and Ethereum, they aren't even close yet. So if they're going to do something similar, I mean, they have a lot of room to go yet, in my opinion. So we'll have to see with that. Let's jump over to the 4 hour on Solana. Ooh, honestly, looks like not a bad long setup to me on the 4 hour here, because we just have a very obvious Stuber fib happening right now. We broke structure to the upside, right? High, higher high, lowest point between the two. Let's pull a fib from there. And obviously it's closer to double bottom, but either way, we're right around the 886 right now. I would not be surprised to see Solana get some sort of a bounce from these levels. Would not be too shocked about that. I am tempted to start a little bit of a Solana long. I'm going to do that 1 sec. Bear with me for a minute. And the thing is, it's a nice, obvious invalidation, right? We end up losing the 115, and I lose faith in that position. And at that point, well, then we're going to significantly lower support levels. We could hope that we find support around this previous range down here. But if that means we lose the micro range, the micro trend there, we might be looking at a full retest, just like what I was looking for with Bitcoin, potentially going back down towards 82K. We'd be looking at something like this, right? I'm not saying we have to go down to these levels. That would be like 115 down towards 105. I'm not saying Solana has to go back down to those levels. Definitely don't have the structure for it yet even. It's just one of those things. Keep it on your radar that it's very realistic that could happen, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's even bearish. At that point, that just means that's a healthy retest of support of the range that it's created, right? Ever since Just like with Bitcoin, ever since breaking the lower high structure, let me just erase a few things here. Ever since breaking this lower high structure, because here we had lower low, lower low, lower high. We ended up breaking that, so we have our new uptrend. But if we end up losing this, that's where I'll start to have my concerns once again. One sec. All right, got a few orders set, basically just laddering in. Oops. I'm just taking that one as, since I never caught the 786, I also never quite caught the 886, but I did just catch it basically right in the middle here. I am also going to set another position just kind of between the 1 and the 115, just to bring my average entry down towards double bottom territory. If I do, that way, if I get stopped out, it is a smaller loss than if I were to just go all into my position right now, right? I like to ladder into positions just like I like laddering out of positions. It just helps reduce risk a little bit. It also means that your profits are going to be smaller if you don't get all of your entries, obviously, but it also makes the losses significantly less painful. But that's interesting. What is the Trendmaster indicator saying? So we are below the buy trend. However, we still haven't completely lost it. There's no new sell signal. And even when we do, it's going to be a higher sell signal, right? So either A, we get a much bigger pullback like I was talking about. Since we have this higher buy signal here, there's a good chance we would get a bounce from something like this. I don't know if it would be a permanent one or just a quick dead cat, but there's a potential buy level there as well. But yeah, basically, if we end up losing this, getting a new sell signal, I would be looking for some sort of a higher buy signal as well. That would give me more confidence to get into a position that isn't necessarily the fib pullback that I want. That would be something that would make me consider taking it a little bit early. What else? Any other altcoins you guys really want me to go over here? I will actually, Adrian, I will, and Zeus, if you're still in here, I will check out Hype in a little bit. One sec, let me just double check. There's no, oh, speaking of puppy, let me just double check the chat here. Did the Wave Master monthly cross test quickly on gold? 10 out of 12 hit rate. I put in the BTC chat. Interesting. I'm going to take a closer look at that after the stream. I just don't want to spend too much time reading it and going into detail in it, since it isn't something that I've looked at typically on gold. But I do want to check that as soon as I am done this stream. Adrian, all right, buddy, I'll get the Hype out there. Hype, okay, Hype on the 4 hour. Let's just erase any drawings I might have. Let me actually start. I'm going to start with the naked chart out on the daily. I know we talked about this potential resistance in my last stream. I think it's going to go higher. I don't really feel good about this Stuber fib setup, just because this isn't actually the top of the range, right? Because the micro trend was actually broken down here. And if anything, I would say pulling the fib from all-time highs. I don't even know if this is completely all-time highs. There's probably older charts than this. But either way, that means that there's obviously a bigger swing if that is the case. So I think this can go a little bit higher. If we want to, I'm actually going to draw this pocket just for something to keep on the radar. go into the 4 hour. Let's check the trend master on the 4 hour. Like I said, we have beautiful support holding right there. I think that can push us a little higher. Same thing as what I've been talking about. Even if we end up losing this and printing a sell signal, I think it's quite likely we end up printing a higher buy signal and getting a beautiful long entry on something like that. Let's go into my more so preferred time frames. Let's hop into the 5 minute. There was an obvious Stuber fib down here. Obviously this is going to be in hindsight, so I would say the bearish setup has already played out here. I'm not overly interested in shorts in this kind of a situation, because we obviously had this high. We could even say, again guys, this is going to be micro analyzing to a lot of people, but many of you guys are very familiar with this type of structure. We did have this higher high, so we lost structure here, but even if you don't want to play with that microstructure, we obviously lost this as well, right? So structure to the upside was obviously broken on the 5 minute. And from there, that means basically this is where we've pivoted. That's where we had a structural shift. So I would just pull that to and basically chase the price, right? So this is just the 5 minute setup. But I would just continue chasing the price until I eventually get a pullback to that 786, 886. Never happened, never happened, never happened, never happened. Boom. And look at that, right? Never quite ended up hitting the second target. It obviously, you would have hit 2 or 3 laddered entries if you played this like a proper Stuber fib. Hard to say if you would have hit that last one. Depends how much you're front running the fibs by. But either way, you'd get at least your average kind of in the middle of the box there, and you would have hit your first take profit. Second take profit obviously didn't get there. You could have started closing more of your position when you ended up losing this micro trend inside. Because here's the thing, guys, right, is that anytime you're pulling a Fibonacci, anytime you're looking at a range, there's always a range inside a bigger range, inside a bigger range, inside a bigger range, which obviously goes the other way. You can always find smaller ranges inside the range that you're pulling. So just something to consider there. That in a case like this, you know, if you're worried about losing profits, for example, and you want to start looking at even more micro structure than even this little range that's pulled here, that's where you can start looking for smaller structure breaks to kind of downsize your position, pay yourself, whatever you got to do, kind of a thing. But basically, the fact that we've already tested the Stuber fib and we have hit at least the first take profit there, the first fib target, that means this has technically already played out once. Now, resistance, just like I talked about earlier, resistance is resistance until it's broken, so that it's not like it's bullish right now, but we do have the bearish pivot still up here. It's just a little bit less likely to play out again. It obviously can. I just really like taking those setups the first time because it's so often that you at least get some sort of a test reaction off those levels. So as long as you're taking profits quickly, you know, setting your orders in advance, because I know a lot of people, when they end up taking trades, especially on shorter time frames, a lot of people get greedy and they don't want to actually take profits at their first take profit levels. And they would rather wait and see, well, let's see what the price does after we hit that level. And unfortunately, especially on shorter time frames, I mean, sometimes you get a decent amount of time, something like this, right? I mean, you could have been closing below the target one for hours. But quite often, if you're playing the 5 minute or the 1 minute, you'll just hit your first target and the price just does a total V-shaped recovery on you. And even though the trade played out, you end up losing anyways, right? So in my opinion, very important to be presetting your orders, because at that point you can't let your emotions get in the way anymore, right? I mean, if they're set, and that's all there is to it. Yeah, as it stands right now, guys, like I said, long term, I don't know how I feel. Chaos, I see you in here, and I've been seeing some of your posts lately, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I mean, this just doesn't really seem like it's this recovery that we have. I just don't know if it's sustainable or not, because like I said, we are approaching that same resistance level that we couldn't break last time, but we have significantly less strength. So what is guaranteeing us that we're going to go parabolic with less strength? It's possible, yes. But like if we invalidate this and we just start staircasing higher and that divergence means nothing, then yeah, I'm totally on board for continuing on with the uptrend. But I just can't totally ignore the fact that it feels very similar to last cycle, when we had this unsustainable recovery. Very, very similar looking to what we have right now, right? Even the RSI, very similar, right? We are approaching the same resistance level with significantly less strength. Boom, all of a sudden you're down 85%, or what did we end up getting there? A 78% correction or whatever it was. And guys, same thing, right? The Stuber fib I'm looking for there. Yeah, we had this liquidity grab here, but understand this was also a Stuber fib, right? We ended up losing this structure. We end up getting our retest of resistance, pull a fib. It never did break that 115. That was not invalidated. That Stuber fib very much called the top of the last market cycle, even with that recovery pump. And right now it feels very similar. The RSI feels very similar. Again, it does not have to play out the same. History does not have to repeat itself. But when we zoom out to the monthly on a time frame and with our momentum indicator and everything kind of lining up, does it at least make sense that we should be cautious at this point in the market, I guess is my point. Is it time to throw caution out the window because you see influencers screaming that, hey, we're going to 300,000, we're going to 700,000, we're going to a fucking $1 million this year? Get fucked. I'm sorry. That is ridiculous. That honestly, that triggers me. I hate seeing people FOMO into that kind of belief because you know what? I've been there. My first market cycle years ago, I remember listening to those people and getting absolutely wrecked just because they were saying what I wanted to hear, and they are getting rich off that. And that does not mean that they're traders. That means that they are getting a lot of clicks and they are making money that way. So just understand, there is a lot of good traders out there with big followings too, right? I want to be clear about that. It's just understand that there's a difference between a trader and an influencer, and traders will often look at the chart and say, hey, here is a couple of scenarios I need to protect myself. If this happens, I'm going to respond this way. It's about, actual traders will have a plan and then they will have a backup plan. Influencers have one mode. They just constant bullish. That's all they need because that gets the clicks. It doesn't matter what part of the market cycle you're in. That is what is going to draw people in because people love that feel good butterfly nonsense. So I hate to be the guy who's always got to be the voice of reason. And again, guys, I know I'm really harping on this here, but I promise I'm not a perma bear. I was so bullish down at these levels that it just hurts me to see that people are now starting to get bullish after we've, already potentially played out an entire market cycle, and now people are promising way higher prices. That's the part that bugs me. But again, we start staircasing higher, that invalidates my signals, and at that point, just keep playing the trend. But as it stands right now, does it seem realistic to see some sort of a bigger correction? Well, we're overextended on the monthly time frame, you guys. That's a very large deal in my opinion. The fact that getting a momentum cross on a monthly time frame chart is a huge deal to me. I always choose market structure before indicators, but we also have this structure break. Yeah, it's great to see that we're reclaiming this order block here, but understand that this candle has 16 days left. We could very easily end up dropping back below this in over 2 weeks. Absolutely, we could. We don't have to, right? We close this monthly candle above this. We now have a confirmed higher low on the trend, and I will be bullish at that point. But as it stands, I just can't shake the feeling that structure across the monthly, the weekly, the 4 hourly are all to the downside right now. The micro uptrend has broken. So there's some big concerns there. From there, like I said, we invalidate that with structure, and then we can kind of toss the indicator invalidations or the indicator signals kind of out the window, because at that point the structure doesn't necessarily agree with it. You know, divergences are getting broken and they're not necessarily being considered all that serious at that point, right? I mean, we're just going to have to see what happens. But as it stands right now, this looks no different to me than this recovery back here at this point. The only thing would be if we close this monthly above this level, at least we've reclaimed that order block, which we obviously didn't do last cycle. So it would be slightly different in that case. But right now, like I said, there's 16 days left until this monthly candle does anything cool. As it stands right now, it looks like we got that bearish cross and we're kind of getting a retest on this indicator. And again, with the RSI, less strength, same resistance. Guys, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. Chaos. In my opinion, if we want higher prices for longer, we need a larger sideways range. I agree 100%. Where capital can become more committed for long-term holding and large support area built up. Seems like quick rotations with risk on, risk off constantly. I couldn't agree with that more. I could not agree with that anymore. I'm glad you said that. And that honestly strengthens my opinion. Well, not strengthens my opinion, strengthens my argument for the fact that I would feel much better about the price if we came back and retested support. That would give us the much bigger range that you're talking about. If we did something like, you know, this. But honestly, that's that's basically another market cycle. That's a massive range. I shouldn't say that's another market cycle. That's not at all another market cycle. But I would much rather see something like this. I would feel better about an extended bull market in that case. But as it stands right now, I just don't think we have it in the fuel tank to just kind of give one of these where we go straight up like a lot of people are claiming is going to happen. I just don't see that happening with all, you know, with so many longer time frame indicators being overextended to the upside and shit like that. I just don't think we go straight parabolic from here. I can't see it. Happy to be wrong. I still have plenty of spot bags that would love to see it. But from a trader's perspective and trying to keep a level head about it, I think it makes a lot more sense to get some sort of, if we are going to continue to be bullish, I would want a bullish pullback of some sort. I was talking to another buddy last night, and he's another trader in the space that I respect very much. And he said that he was basically eyeing up the exact same situation as me, that he would feel a lot better and just kind of looking for buy opportunities down at this level. Because, again, I would just rather be a buyer at support than a buyer into resistance like this. That doesn't mean resistance can't break. It just means that over time, if you're going to keep longing into resistance, you're not going to have a good time. This time could be different. I don't like to play the could game. Liquidations band is potential support right now, right? On the 4 hour, we have the liquidations band, and as I mentioned, the trend master basically lining up perfectly as support right now. So yeah, that can push us higher. But again, that macro Stuber fib isn't invalidated until basically 115k. So basically until then, this range is just a very dangerous place. And that doesn't matter if you're bullish like the rest of crypto Twitter or if you're bearish like me. That doesn't mean risk management goes out the window, right? If you like the way I analyze and you agree with what I'm seeing here, just understand we can be very wrong. Every trader, every trade setup loses trades at times. But again, I would always rather be a seller at resistance and a buyer at support rather than longing into resistance. That's so dangerous. Interesting there, Chaos. This rings alarm bells for me for end of June being back around 90K for the options $10 billion expiry for Max Payne. Yeah, I mean, we've seen those options expiries act as a magnet for the price, right? Absolutely possible. And 90K wouldn't even be a bad pullback, right? Let's look at this. Would you just look at it? Let's pull my bearish fib again from our highs down to where we bottomed and recovered. The first Stuber fib target as far as a swing setup here is the 0.5 fib down around 92.4K. Call it 92.5. That's just, guys, that's just a very, that's a scalp sized profit for this type of a swing setup, right? That's just the first target as far as the 4 hour goes for the current structure. The second target is down around 82.3K, right? So as far as this swing setup goes, I mean, the two range targets, these aren't even breakout targets, right? These are not my bear market targets because we still don't know if we're in a bear market or not. But just looking for playing the range first and hoping for a runner after, that's how I always do my trades, right? Any trade I take based on fibs, I always have my first couple of take profits in that fib range because I always play the range first and then hope for that home run after that, but not banking on it, basically, right? So as far as this range goes, the first two targets are 10K and 20K away. That's huge. That's a huge range. And I would love to see us respect this range. I don't know if that'll happen. We might even just get something like this and just absolutely nuke. And if my theories about a potential bear market are true, then yeah, we might absolutely see that. But I still think ultimately we get some sort of a nice reaction off this buy level down here if we even get down there, right? There's a lot of what ifs between now and then. But that's as far as swing setups, that's what I'm looking at. May 30th, 7.72 billion Max Payne. At what price? At 94,000. Yeah, that would be just above the 0.5. Front running it a little bit. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, and like you said, with bearish divergences, potentials forming on macros, absolutely. Taking a look at the dashboard here, retail is starting to come around for the longs a little bit. I'm actually still shocked that retail is so short heavy. There's still a lot of people trying to short this, and yes, that is a point for the bulls, right? The more people trying to short this, that's obviously rocket fuel for the bulls. So, we might see that trend master, like I said, on the 4 hour holding as support, etc. So far, that's another metric that I would say favors the bulls right now, is that, retail's still quite short heavy. I don't understand that, to be honest, because when I look at social media, I mean, I see a lot of people claiming that everybody's bearish, but I don't see anybody actually being bearish. I just see people saying that everybody's bearish, except in this group. I will say that there's a lot more bearish people in the MDX ALGO Discord. I feel differently about that because I know we are actually traders here, and I know that a lot of you guys are getting, second opinions from some of the other mentors and so on. So, we at least try to look at things level-headed rather than just looking for clicks online, right? So I truly believe that's why I see more bearish sentiment in this chat. But as far as like YouTube and Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, anything like that, I think that it is screaming Moon Boy Central. I'm still holding most of my alt bags. I've been spot trading, so I've been buying and selling meme coins a little bit. I'm still holding chunks of them, but I'm kind of going laddering in, laddering out, that sort of thing as I trade them because they are so volatile. But no, I'm not really selling the majority of my spot yet or anything like that. Like I said, I think that altcoins, even if Bitcoin is topped, I really think that altcoins will still have their moment in the sun, but we're gonna have to see. I actually want to see Bitcoin dominance. That's something I wanted to look up earlier. It was pumping pretty good today, that's for sure. I did notice that some of the memers were dropping off. I'm gonna take a look at the 4-hour, because you guys, like I was saying at the start of the stream, a lot of altcoins were actually performing quite well the last few weeks, and here's a perfect explanation for it, right? Bitcoin dominance absolutely dumped off a cliff. It obviously broke a very strong trend. As soon as we broke that on the 4-hour, we saw altcoins pumping. Like some of the memers that I was looking at, like last month, I mean, some of them are up like 700% and shit like that. Some of them have been very volatile, but yeah, obviously Bitcoin dominance was dropping off. So the fact that now it looks like it has broke its downtrend, altcoins might be a little more risky again. And here's where, if Bitcoin dominance is climbing and the price of Bitcoin and altcoins and everything is dropping, to me that looks scary. It looks like people are trying to get rid of their risky situations and trying to downsize their risk. Whereas if Bitcoin dominance is climbing and the price of Bitcoin is also climbing, then it kind of makes sense that, okay, focus is on the king again, right? Focus is on Bitcoin and people are excited about it. Money's going back into Bitcoin. But if we see the market selling off and people are getting out of alts more so into Bitcoin, it's just a bit of a red flag to me there as well. So we're going to have to see what happens. But to me, I mean, Bitcoin has obviously broken its downtrend, right? Or not Bitcoin's downtrend, Bitcoin dominance downtrend. Because we had low, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. And we have officially broke it, well, I guess 8 minutes ago with that candle close. So although it would still make sense just like anything, right? Here, let me move this guy just to show where that got broken. I'll actually make it green for bullish. I don't know if it is bullish, but breaking the downtrend like that would make a lot of sense if Bitcoin dominance did drop again. But if it gets some sort of a retest like that and Bitcoin starts climbing and Bitcoin price starts dropping, I think that would be a bit of a scary situation for the market, I guess. Kind of depends how the price reacts with the dominance. But yeah, to me, Bitcoin dominance has broke the downtrend, so maybe altcoins won't be doing the best for the next little bit. I still think there's a good chance that they have a nice big push before the end of this cycle, but we're going to have to see, right? Play it day by day. Play the charts, not the news. I trade the charts. I do not trade tweets. Just very simple market structure, some Fibonacci pullbacks. And you know what? If some indicators can provide a second opinion from time to time, then fantastic. Like this, for example. Look at that fib that I have pulled. If I turn on the ALGO Master automatic Stuber fibs, they line up with what I'm looking at right now. So love to see that, yeah, we have potential resistance right here, right? Good morning, Cause. Good to see ya. Yeah, you get it. Trade the charts. No room for emotions in trading. Absolutely, you get it. Guys, I am going to wrap up the stream here. I am going to stick around for a few minutes just in case you guys want to chat, whatever, while I upload stuff, etc. But I do just want to wrap it up here. So, yeah. Anyways, legends, I think that's about all I really wanted to go over today. So hopefully you guys found this stream useful. For those of you who are watching this a little bit later on my YouTube channel, if you want access to the MDX algo indicators and Discord, there's a link in the description down below. I've also got a fairly new private Telegram channel where I share some of my trade setups, just some of my thoughts on the market in general. Basically a place for me to keep all my thoughts together. It's completely free for people who trade on BloFin using my sign up link. There's steps in the description down below on my YouTube video. With that, thank you once again for joining me, everybody. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.